Having a regular sitting practice can have many beneficial outcomes, and finding a seated position that's right for your body can make all the difference between many fruitful hours of sitting or struggling to be able to sit at all. So let's take a little look at how to find a comfortable, supported, stable, seated posture so that you can relax more fully into your sitting practice. To enable your spine to be vertical with as little effort as possible, you'll need enough height from your support to allow for your front hip bones to be at least a little higher than your knees. This will then create a slight forward tilt to your pelvis, which will allow the curves of your spine to be present and soft, in particular your lower lumbar curve. If your knees are higher than your hip bones, you'll find that either you collapse into your lower back, like this, or you'll have to actively push your back and hold it in place, both of which can become uncomfortable quite quickly. So, to clarify, your front hip bones are the two bones that you can feel with your hands at the top front of your pelvis. It's important that these two bones are at least a little higher than your knees when you come to sitting. And this can be achieved by sitting on a chair, or if sitting on the floor by using cushions or blocks or folded blankets, and you may need a lot of those supports. Of course, the classical sitting posture is with the legs crossed, and we'll have a look at that. But really it doesn't matter what you sit on or how you have your legs. What is important is that your spine is vertical and that you are as comfortable as possible, and of course that your joints, in particular your knees, are being taken care of. So let's take a look at some of the different options for sitting on the floor and on a chair. If you have any existing problems with your knees and find it uncomfortable sitting on the floor, then sitting with your legs crossed is probably going to be the one to avoid. And for those of you with healthy knees, you'll definitely want to keep them that way. So when coming to sitting cross-legged, move slowly and with sensitivity to your knees, especially if trying this for the first time. Again, for your spine to be long and soft, you'll need to make sure that you have enough height from your support to allow for your front hip bones to be at least a little higher than your knees. To protect your knees from being twisted, make sure that your calf muscles are as close to the backs of your thighs as possible. The closer your calves are to your thighs, the less likely your knees will be twisted. You could then sit with one foot in front of the other, with your knees as wide as possible. Now this variation is actually not so good for the knee of the leg that's in front, as the knee will not quite be fully closed and so may be slightly vulnerable to being twisted. But many people prefer this option, so here it is. It's much safer for your front knee to tuck your front foot behind the opposite ankle, like this. For some, this can be quite uncomfortable for the ankles, but your ankles are much less vulnerable to pressure than your knees are to being twisted, so this is the recommended option of the two for your knees. Make sure that your knees are comfortably rested on something. If your knees are not rested on the floor, you could place a rolled up blanket underneath your knees so as to support the weight of your legs. Sitting in an easy cross-legged position, with each leg resting on the opposite ankle, is also an option. But as you can see, the knees are going to be higher than your hips and no longer on the floor, so it's likely that you'll need a lot of support under your pelvis and your knees, but this is an option. If you find that you're not comfortable with your legs crossed, you could try a kneeling position. You may find again that you'll need quite a bit of height for this option, so feel free to use as many cushions, bolsters or folded blankets as is necessary to allow your knees to feel most comfortable. And make sure also that your thigh bones are as much as possible in line with your shin bones so that your knees are not being twisted. But many people are not going to find it comfortable sitting on the floor at all, and so sitting on a chair can be a great way to really enjoy a deeply fruitful sitting practice. Look for a chair that will allow you to sit with both feet flat on the floor and, of course, for your hip bones to be a little higher than your knees. If you're tall or your chair is low, you might find that you need to add some extra height to your chair to find the correct height for your pelvis. And you could achieve this again by adding cushions or blocks or a folded blanket. But anyway, whichever way you come to sit, when you do, sit a little towards the front edge of your chair, bench or cushion, so that you can be easily upright without leaning forwards or backwards. Have your rib cage more or less above your pelvis and your head more or less above your rib cage. And feel free to place your hands wherever's most comfortable, on your thighs or in your lap, palms up or palms down or hands together. And then invite your hands to relax completely, especially your fingers and your thumbs and your shoulders. Allow the muscles of your back, rib cage and neck to support the smaller muscles of your spine as much as is necessary, but as little as possible. And invite the rest of your body to completely relax. So I think it's also important to mention that after your seated practice, it's really important to release back into movement with sensitivity again. So take your time with that, and especially if you've been sitting with your legs crossed. When you're ready to release from your cross-legged position, please do not push your feet forwards, as this can easily open and twist your knees. Instead, support the weight of one leg in your hand, and keeping the knee closed, lift the knee up before taking the foot forwards, and then the same with the other leg. And if you've been sitting for a long time on the floor or on a chair, you may find it nice to just simply come and lie on your back for a little while. And maybe even move around a little, whatever feels good in your body, before you eventually move on to what you're doing next. But anyway, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask in the comments section below. And otherwise, enjoy your seated practice.